All right, welcome. I want to talk about the Arizona Coyotes, Phoenix Coyotes, former Phoenix Coyotes. Um, this isn't a topic I want to talk about too much, but this is a pretty massive event in the NHL, and this is one of those things I should talk about. I'm really invested into this whole process, but there are tons more experts, even on YouTube and on the internet, that probably can explain this a little more in depth, but I do want to talk about it a bit. I'm always fascinated with relocation or expansion. So the title is Coyotes No More for now, right? And I guess we could talk about that first. That's fine. Um, so the Arizona Coyotes are moving to Salt Lake City as of this summer. They'll begin the next season in Salt Lake City when October, right? So that's just a few months away, and we'll dive into that a bit. But why didn't it work in Arizona? Well, there's a lot of issues, but at the end of the day, there was no trust with the local governments and the owner of the Arizona Coyotes, and it kind of all started with the Glendale Gil Arena negotiations, right? The team and the city of Glendale, which owns the arena, were negotiating on renovations and who would pay for what and what these renovations would look like and all that such. And they weren't even close to making a deal. So what did the Arizona Coyotes do? Specifically, their owner, he stops paying rent in December, right? Their lease was up in 2021, 2022 during that season, but nonetheless, no rent. You're not going to have a building. So at the end of the day, the city of Glendale terminates the contract with the Coyotes. Coyotes have to play out in Mullet Arena, which is a college hockey arena for Arizona State University, which I believe is Division One now, but it's still a pretty new Division One hockey school. Right? I knew a kid I went to high school with ended up being the goaltender for Arizona State University's hockey team. This is a long time ago. They were still Division Three. There's no Division Two hockey in college hockey, right? But nonetheless, bad taste in the mouth from various owners, and then the whole Tempe deal district is trying to be finalized, and then there's rifts between Tempe and the surrounding municipalities. Right, this is only going to benefit. We're going to put this on the border of, I think it was Glendale. Right, this is going to affect Glendale substantially, whereas Tempe is mostly going to benefit from this. So you didn't have full buy-in supports, and it seemed a little sketchy at first, right? And it's just been clear since then that this isn't gonna happen. It's not gonna happen, right? You get some plot of land in northeast Phoenix, and you get the mayor of Scottsdale coming out and being like, we're not giving you water and stuff to support your hockey rink, like essentially saying they don't want the Arizona Coyotes in the general area. And I think specifically, not necessarily just having hockey, I think it's more or less the owners and their business practices. They don't want to do business with somebody who has demonstrated shady business practices with this specific hockey team for years, right? With that being said, there is a market for hockey in Arizona. There are a ton of Arizona Coyotes fans. It's a great hockey market, and I really feel bad for the fans over there. Right, we've had NHL players from Arizona start to come into the league from when the team was birthed. Right, so there have been a lot of success stories. Hockey in the desert isn't dead. It's not doable. It's definitely doable. Look at Las Vegas. Las Vegas is a desert, and it's thriving there. Phoenix, the Phoenix metro area is a massive market. And you have a lot of diehard hockey fans there. One of the kids I actually graduated high school with is doing sports commentating down there for the Arizona Coyotes. Right? It's really weird seeing him on social media. You're like, wow, that's weird. But there's a big hockey market down there, so I really feel for Coyotes fans. But let's talk about Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City has a metro population of 2.7 million people. It's not the biggest market, but it's also not the smallest market. It's definitely not a big market by any means, but nonetheless, there are a good amount of people there. We'll dive into that in a sec. They have an NBA team, the Utah Jazz. They do very well. And they also have a Major League Soccer team So you might have some overlap with basketball fans and hockey, considering their seasons are almost identical. They line up almost perfectly, right? NBA just finished their season yesterday or today, and hockey ends in just a couple days. They start around the same time, they end around the same time. Playoffs correlate. So there's that, right? But of the 2.7 million people, you're bound to find hockey fans. It's also notably a hockey, or not a hockey, it's a basketball and kind of a football market, right? You have BYU football is kind of a big deal there. You have basketball, the Utah Jazz. You have some college basketball teams there that do pretty well too. But it's kind of a dead zone for a hockey. Why put a team there? Well, the point is to grow the game of hockey, to bring in new fans. New fans means new revenue, means new income, means new investment and future investment into the league. And we've seen this work. We've seen it work in Dallas. We've seen it work in Arizona, whether you agree or disagree. It is what it is. We've seen it in Tampa, right? We've seen it a little bit in Atlanta, although two unsuccessful owners over there kind of making the team, forcing a relocation to both times to Canada, right? So there is opportunity there. Now, because the metro market is only 2.7 million and they've made such substantial bids to Major League Baseball to have a Major League Baseball team in Salt Lake City as well, that could start to eat into revenues, fan base, and so on. So I think that's why the NHL is like, let's get in first, let's establish this right behind the NBA. If you can beat MLB, you're more likely to kind of have a more substantial fan base than, say, Major League Baseball. And there's a very good chance Major League Baseball, when they do expansion, I think the two favorites are Nashville, which is obvious, and Salt Lake City. Both smaller markets, and both have already at least two established of the major four teams, right? Nashville with the NHL and NFL. Salt Lake City with Major League with the NBA and now the NHL. So that's kind of why Salt Lake City is to build up new fandom, especially in such a dead area. There's not a whole lot of options like Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, the Dakotas, right? You have Colorado, but that's, on the other side. There's not a whole lot of opportunity to bring hockey to that area. It kind of works out. You can make hockey work here. The market's big enough to have hockey work. And it really gets your goal of really bringing in more hockey fans, new hockey fans, right? They did that in Seattle. Seattle had some hockey fans already, but bringing in new ones, right? It's exciting. It's an NHL team. It's not like a WHL team, junior hockey. So that's kind of it's an important thing that the league looks for. The arena they'll be playing at is the Delta Center. It's where the Utah Jazz play. I don't have any images forthcoming on this page, but there's an account called Depressed Ginger. That is his name. I don't. But he's done a few videos on the Arizona Coyotes relocating to Salt Lake City, and he has some images of what the arena could look like. It's an arena built for basketball, specifically for basketball. But I think he said this is all information from Depressed Ginger in 2002. I think that's the right year. Utah hosted the Winter Olympics, and in the Winter Olympics they had hockey. So the Delta Center was used as a hockey arena. Now, it's not the greatest looking arena. It's not going to be like spectacular when they play hockey. It's going to look very odd. It just is what it is. But I mean, I think it seats 14,000 for hockey or something, which is still more than twice what you get at Mullet Arena in Arizona, right? It's an inaugural season. You can charge a little more for tickets than you will in seasons 2 and 3. So the profit margins should be better on tickets in Salt Lake City. So there's that. There's been political pushes from the new owner. And I say new owner, so none of this has been signed on the dotted lines, right? This hasn't been fully approved by the Board of Governors, but it looks like it's pretty much all but done. The players have been informed they will be playing in Salt Lake City next year, so we'll see what happens. If there's some weird thing that happens, that would be a little monkey wrench in it. I probably should have started with that, but it's not a done deal yet, but it's all but been confirmed, right? And we should get the official announcement very shortly. Probably sometime this week would be my guess. Probably by the end of Friday, we should know for sure. But the arena, the new owner, potential owner, I believe his name is Ryan Smith, has already reached out to local politicians to try and push for a new a hockey arena, right? And it looks like the hockey arena and the Utah Jazz will be combined into one multi-purpose arena. We'll see. There have been plans to have a separate ice hockey arena, but I think it's going to be one of those more like multi-purpose arenas, kind of like what the LA Kings play out of with the LA Lakers, and the Bruins play out of with the Boston Celtics, and the Capitals play out of with the Wizards. And there's a lot of examples around the league for that. But a new arena should be coming. It looks like the political willpower there is in favor of having a new arena. That kind of leads me to plan B. If that doesn't go through, if they can't get a new arena, playing at the Delta Center, the way it is set up for hockey is not sustainable. Not only will it be the smallest arena in the NHL still, which I believe will be just below Winnipeg. I think Winnipeg's a little over 15,000. It's ugly to look at when there's a hockey game going on. It's not attractive. It's not visually pleasing. The Mullet Arena is a little more visually pleasing to look at. It's a lot more visually pleasing than what we'll see at the Delta Center. So remember that. Keep it with a grain of salt. It's not permanent. But if they can't find an arena, we could be looking at this team officially relocating to a city with an already built NHL arena, and there aren't many of those. So we could be talking about Quebec City. The team could go there, it'll do fine. They have an NHL already arena. And I have Hamilton up here because hockey would work very well in Hamilton. There would be a huge hockey market. But there's issues with the Toronto Maple Leafs organization and owner that they essentially don't want another team in the general area. They want to have that fan base, and they make a lot of money because they have such a massive fan base in the Toronto metro area, which includes Hamilton, that it's as good of an idea as it is to have another team there. It's like, I don't know if there's legal issues, but like it's the league isn't entertaining any ideas to moving to Hamilton or wherever, Kitchener or any of the other surrounding cities of Toronto, because of the Maple Leafs owners being like, hey, we're not doing this type thing. So that could be something to look a little more into, kind of those finer details. But essentially, the Maple Leafs are vetoing any other team from coming to the area. There is an arena that can be, or I think they're building one that's NHL ready, but it's not for the NHL purposes or attracting a team, but it also could. So if this doesn't work out in Salt Lake City, and it won't work out if there's no arena, we could see a team back in Quebec City. There might be other options. I literally didn't do any research as to cities that had NHL ready arenas. But Quebec City, first one that comes to mind, it's going to work. They have an NHL arena. You have fandom there. Having another team in Canada, not the worst thing in the world, right? Having a rivalry back with Boston and Montreal would be fun. I don't think it'll get to that point. I think it'll work. There seems to be a lot of support for a new arena in the Salt Lake City area. I think that will happen. But it's never done until it's done type thing. Right? So what does that mean for branding? The new owner, Ryan Smith, has not bought the rights to anything Coyotes related. The team will have new colors, new jersey, new branding. They will not be called the Coyotes. They won't have this logo. They can't use the Kachina logo. They can't use anything they've used in the past. That's all trademarked, I believe. Right? And speaking of that, if you want to get an Arizona Coyotes jersey, they're pretty much all gone unless you're a size small or below, or like extra small or extra small. Those are still available, but If you want an Arizona Coyotes jersey, you got to start hunting like now because they're pretty much all gone. I want a Kachina jersey. I have a fake one. I was really desperate for any type of Kachina jersey, and it was the cheapest I could find, and it came in fake, and it was unfortunate. Um, but man, I'm probably gonna try to scoop one up, a Kachina jersey. But with that being said, there could be so a stipulation with this move is that Arizona will have a 5 year window, um, and there's benchmarks they have to meet along the way, right? To potentially have an expansion team. If they meet all these benchmarks, then they will be granted an NHL expansion team, which I kind of hope happens. I really feel bad for the fans in Arizona. They have a very solid, very good fan base. A lot of knowledgeable and passionate fans. Um, right? It's just it's a very solid fan base for hockey. I think it's very underrated. You look at like the arena in Glendale. First off, it's not in the best location. But you're like, why isn't this full? Well, the product on the ice has been poor really their entire existence. Right? The ticket prices weren't super cheap, comparatively speaking, to how bad they were. We're seeing that with the Buffalo Sabres. Tickets to see the Buffalo Sabres, a team that hasn't made the playoffs in 13 years, are still pretty expensive. Um, right? And you can talk about resale tickets and all that. I'm not diving into ticket prices right now, but there are reasons you don't see the Coyotes fans actually at the Coyotes games, and that should be a message for ownership. Like, hey, if you lower the price or get a more desirable location, this can work. But this doesn't work for most of us fans. We're not going to go out of our way 42 games a year, 42 days a year to go to a Coyotes game that really consumes a good chunk of our day and night. And we see that. We see that in various markets and various sports, right? It's one of those things we see in Tampa with St. Petersburg. That's where it's at. The Tropicana Field is. It's not easy to get to a Tampa Bay Rays home game. It just isn't. It's a terrible location for a stadium. There are people around it, I'm sure, love going to the games because it's cheap and hard for other people to get to. But there are better options in the Tampa area. That's just one of many examples. With that being said, future expansion has essentially been confirmed, at least in my eyes. If you're willing to grant Arizona an expansion team within the next 5 years, they might not. They might not meet the benchmarks and be eligible for expansion. But I'd honestly be surprised if we didn't see hockey back in the desert, at least announced within the next 10 years. There'll probably be some type of expansion team in Arizona, even if this isn't met. Will probably be with a different ownership group. I don't think anyone's really willing to do business with the current owner of the Coyotes. But what are you going to have? 33 teams? You're probably going to have another team, 34 teams. 34 is a pretty solid number. And at the end of the day, it really comes down to money. Why are we seeing leagues expand? Because we saw how successful it was with the NHL and how much income and extra revenue they've made as a result of that. And it continues to pile up every year because those fan bases become more and more established. That reach and those deals, those TV deals, expand further and further. You get more and more viewers, means more ticket sales, higher ticket prices, more merch being bought up, kind of the whole 9 yards. More people participating in like jersey auctions and such, buying memorabilia. Going like if you're going on vacation to like if you're in Vegas and you're like, dude, I kind of like the Vegas Golden Knights, and you're like going to I don't know St. Louis to see like your parents because that's where you're from, or your grandparents because that's where they're from, or something like that. You're like, oh, let's catch a hockey game, right? Those are ticket sales that the league gets. So that's it's at the end of the day, it really just comes down to money. But future expansion is really all but it's confirmed at this point through this Salt Lake City move. I'm curious to see what the branding will look like, what the colors will be, what the jersey will be. I honestly don't know. I'm hoping we get some type of like maybe like the Salt Lake City Monsters or something, and we get like a flying spaghetti monster logo. I think that'd be awesome. but I don't really have any speculation or knowledge on what the branding could look like. The owner put out a poll maybe like a couple months ago asking the new owner, Ryan Smith, asking what should an NHL team be called if we get a NHL team. I don't know what the results of that were, if they were even made public, but it's pretty exciting in general. The biggest concern I have, though, is should the MLB move to Salt Lake City? There is kind of an MLB market there, and I think Salt Lake City has an ECHL team, which it's tough to determine hockey fandom with an ECHL team because product on the ice isn't very good. The arena and amenities aren't usually all that good. It's not the most entertaining thing. If there was an ECHL team across the street from me, as much as I love hockey and I really dive into it, I probably wouldn't go to. I'd probably go to like one game and call it a day type thing. I probably wouldn't go back. I'm just being entirely honest right now. I mean, I don't know. I've never been to an ECHL game. They could be good. They could be fun. I don't really know. It's probably more for a certain type of audience though, and I might not be that target audience, and that's perfectly okay. I think it's tough to determine fandom. How well you're gonna do in terms of building up a fan base based on an ECHL team. So I didn't include that. But if you have three of the four major sports teams in a metro area of 2.7 million, you're starting to flirt with those numbers where the market may not be big enough to sustain all of those major sports. And I'm not just in MLS is up here too, and I'm not even including that. Right? So we've seen that with some cities. Are they able to support all these teams with their population? And once you start getting below 1 million people per team, it can get a little hairy. It's not the case for all cities, and time will tell with Salt Lake City. We'll see what happens. But I'd be a little concerned if Salt Lake City did get a Major League Baseball expansion team, because then you're really diluting the fan base. Even though there are overlaps with the seasons, playoffs, baseball season's been going on since April, since beginning of April, end of March, right? So we're a few weeks in, and I've watched a lot of baseball this year. I'm not gonna lie. I've watched probably like 10 or 11 games so far. Of the 16, 16 games into the season, right? And that's, I could be watching a hockey game instead. I could have watched who did the Detroit Red Wings play the New Jersey Devils. Like I could have been watching that game, not the Devils. Oh, maybe the Islanders. I don't know. Oh, Capitals. Then they play the Capitals. The Red Wings and Capitals play, and they're vouching for that last wild card spot. I could have watched that game. I chose to watch baseball instead. So that's just an example, right? Me, I watch a lot of hockey, and there are times where I'll choose baseball over hockey. Most of the time I'm choosing hockey over baseball, depending on the matchups. But most people aren't really like me when it comes to sports, and that's perfectly okay. So we'll see what happens. This is fun. This is interesting. I am not an expert on this. This is just kind of what I've gathered. I'm sure I'm missing stuff. If you have questions, let me know. Let me know on this video. I'm not gonna make many videos on this. I'm not gonna do a whole series type thing. But I felt like I needed to talk about this because this is a pretty massive event happening in hockey, and I'm super interested in this topic. But I don't feel as though I'm well versed enough to speak very thoroughly as some other people have. I got to give a shout out to Depressed Ginger for his arena insights. I got to give a shout out to the hockey guy. He does a very thorough job of the Coyotes. I highly recommend you check his stuff out. Right. He's been doing Coyote stuff and relocating stuff for quite some time, and there's always updates, and he's really on top of that and become kind of an expert in that, more so than I. So if you're looking for more of this type of stuff, there are plenty of other options. You're probably going to get a little more insight from than me. But it's fun. I want to talk about it. I want to look at why is nobody willing to do business with the current Coyotes organization and ownership group as is. What it could look like in Salt Lake City. I almost said St. Louis. Salt Lake City, the metro population. I'm big on seeing how well markets can support how many professional sports teams. I've done videos like that in the past. It's again, it comes down to numbers, right? 2.7 million divided by two now, 1.35, and then you might be dividing 2.7 million by three with an MLB team, right? And you're well below $1 million or a million people per team. So that's kind of how you have to distinguish markets to an extent. Obviously, every market is different, right? You can go to Boston. Excuse me, my throat's dry. You could probably put a hockey, like an NHL team in Providence, Rhode Island, and it'll probably sell out every night. It's very close to Boston. It's not like the closest city to Boston, but it's very close. Probably like, I don't know, 45 minutes, an hour type thing. Depends where in Boston you're coming from, right? But we're probably not gonna see that. But Boston is a very sports oriented city where it could probably support comfortably two hockey teams along with the three other major sports. Whereas, if you put a second hockey team in a place like Washington D.C., for example, you might not do as well because sports in general aren't the most forefront in this area, and that's okay. Every city, every market is very different, but you kind of have to know your markets. And with Salt Lake City, it's a big unknown because there's only been the Utah Jazz. I feel like they had another team in the past, but I can't put my finger on it. Very remedial research on the history of Salt Lake City sports. But it's something I'm interested in, something to dive into. So that's it for this video. Obviously, you have questions, let me know. I can do research. I can look things up. I can get you some type of answer. I might already know the answer. I might not. But again, got my Coyotes jersey on. It's the Howling Coyote. I think this was like $20. This is a Reebok. I can't really tell. I think this is like the authentic Reebok jersey, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, this is the authentic Reebok jersey. I got for like $20. Great. So I think it's the only jersey I have without a name on the back. But I really wanted a Coyotes jersey, and all I had was a fake. Got my Locos hat on because this is kind of crazy. The reason this team is relocating at the end of the day is kind of insane. So insane things. I got my Lansing Locos hat on because what is going on? This is something that really shouldn't be happening. You should be managing your businesses a little better, a little less sketchy when it comes to certain things. Right? There's a place and time for sketchy business dealings, and relocating an NHL hockey team to a new city within the same market really shouldn't be one of those sketchy things, or holding out, rent until kind of forcing the city to pay more in renovation costs, right? Taxpayer money for you and for your team. Like, hey, give us money, or we're not giving you our rent, which is a contractual agreement type thing. Right, it's not really the time and place to be doing that. There are different and better methods to go about that. And at the end of the day, it comes down to being a little greedy, right? And then all of a sudden, they want all this taxpayer money from Glendale, and then all of a sudden they're like, "We'll just pay for a whole new arena and district." So like, was a few hundred million worth it in comparison to the billion plus you'll spend on creating a district and arena? Probably not at the end of the day. So that's it for this. I appreciate you. Take care, right?